Hi, we're coming again with Hardtime.info, and we're talking about traffic tickets today. This is going to be on all kinds of different traffic tickets, and we're going to have a PowerPoint in just a moment so that I can give it to you step by step. We're going to talk about today moving violations and parking tickets. How do we fight a moving violation? How do we fight a parking ticket? Those are going to be our topics for today. Let me just read something that I think is very helpful because we have to consider that sometimes crisis, difficulties come into our life, and God has allowed those sometimes to come into our life to cause us to look at ourselves, to cause us to evaluate. So, why is it that this has happened? Why is it that this happened to you? Why are you going through this? Well, maybe you were just in a hurry. I know I used to go to a community college and their parking fee was so expensive. I knew that it was cheaper to get parking tickets and pay for those through the season than it was to pay for the parking pass. Was that wrong? Sure. But what would end up costing me 15 or 20 bucks instead of paying back then the $35 for the parking pass, it just made monetary sense to me. Now, I don't endorse that, and I don't want you to go through and say, well, Frank said, yeah, just pay the parking ticket. There are times that you're going to have to just pay the consequences. But sometimes things have been allowed to come into our life to make us look at ourselves. And that's really what we want to do with this whole series. What is it that we've done? Did our thinking get out of line? Are we thinking that we're so special, or that things don't apply to us, or there are no consequences to our breaking the rules? There's no consequences to us possibly putting others at harm. Those are things that we have to look at and we have to evaluate within ourselves. So we're talking about that in hardtime.info, and I hope that you examine your life and see where you stand, and you're examining your heart, you're examining your mind so that you change your mindset and you get the good out of what has happened, and you've grown by it and you've become a better person and you're more responsible. And now you're working within the confines of a country and our citizenship, as well as being, especially if you're a Christian, we want to be a good example, a good witness. And by the way, I wasn't a Christian when I got all those parking tickets. All right, so now we're going to get into our PowerPoint and start talking about moving violations, and then we'll get into parking tickets and parking violations. So we're talking about traffic tickets today. We're going to be talking about parking all the way to moving violations. Let's start with moving violations. What happens when you're pulled over by an officer? These are some things you want to remember when you're pulled over. That officer doesn't know you. They don't know what to expect. They don't know if you're wanting to take off or if you are in a hurry, what's going on in your life. They don't know. That's why they're being trained for the worst case scenario. And it's unfortunate, but it's set up so that they win. That's what you have to consider. This is a system set up where they're going to already win. So I encourage you, if you have the time and you have the gumption, to fight that ticket. So what do? You may be dealing with all kinds of emotions, and especially when you're pulled over, it might cause many, many more emotions. It just is a natural thing. You're not abnormal by feeling all kinds of emotions when that happens. And of course, we always expect the worst. So when you are pulled over, follow these simple guidelines. They're common sense things that we want to be doing whenever we're being pulled over. So, number one, signal your compliance. Do not speed up. Don't start to try to take off. signal with your indicator or even with a hand signal that you are going to comply. But you want to make sure that you are getting off of the roadway at a safe stopping place. So you can, by slowing down, putting on your turn indicator, you're showing that you are considering not only your safety, but that officer's safety coming to a safe stopping area. Now, that cop should have known he wouldn't put the lights on until it was a safe area. So that's normally what they're trained to do. They're going to try to find a safe stopping area. But if you don't feel safe, if it's too dark or you're unsure, you have the right to move slowly to a safe stopping area. You may have to explain that later. It's a good idea. Keep your hands visible. Let them be able to see that. Sometimes at night you're being pulled over and they're going to put a lot of lights there. That's why they want to see your hands. They want to make sure that everything is on the up and up. You're not trying to do something that's illegal or trying to hide something. We're going to talk about that. One of the things you do want to do, and even though now you have to maybe go into your glove box or your back pocket, wherever your driver's license, maybe in your purse, get your driver's license. Get your vehicle registration and proof of insurance. Sometimes when the officer pulls over, he's putting information on his computer. And it's going to be a moment before he comes up to your window. They might come to the left window or to the right window on the passenger side, whatever is safer. Be ready to put that window down and speak to that officer. And if you have those things available, it just shows that you are aware of your situation, aware of your surroundings. So now keep also from fast movements. And I cannot tell you how many times you've seen people that are trying to hide something, and it's very obvious. That's what that officer is looking for. You're not going to hide anything. Don't make those fast movements. Use common sense. Follow the officer's directions. Now's not the time to get belligerent. You will have time later to make your case. You will have time later to explain, whether that's in the court or maybe at the end of this. The officer may or may not allow you to explain the situation. He or she sees it from their vantage point. They're not looking at it from your point of view. So number one is be polite. No matter what you're feeling, no matter what you're going through. And maybe you'll need to explain, there's a medical emergency, there's something else that's going on, and you're dealing with someone in your vehicle that's having an emergency. Let them know that. So whatever you're feeling, the emotions may be high, but let them know and be polite. Then feel free to ask questions. If you don't understand something, as calmly as possible, ask for clarification. I don't get it. I don't understand this. Tell me, what does this mean? What does that mean? Sometimes, because they're doing this every day, they just expect everybody to know. As a citizen, you're not being pulled over every day. You don't know these things. So you want to ask for clarification so that you have a good understanding. And do that as calmly as possible. Now, when the officer is all done, he gets back in his car, just take a breath, relax a moment. Make note of these following things. And if you do this later, that's fine. I'm going to talk about that. If you have your camera with a phone, take pictures. Take pictures of the roadway. It's important to recognize whether it's a dry road, a wet road, if it's icy, snowy conditions, whatever it might be. Look at the roadway. What are the road conditions? What kind of condition is the pavement in? Is it full of potholes? Is it broken up? Is it nice cement? Is it a paved asphalt in good condition or bad condition? Sometimes if you were pulled over for maybe driving too slow, or you might be weaving, maybe it was because you were trying to miss certain potholes. Those are good reasons to explain to the officer, this is why I was weaving, because look at the potholes. So see the road conditions. Notice also the traffic. How many other cars are on the road? What kind of vehicles are on the road? What else is around there? Was it very light traffic, medium traffic, heavy traffic? Now, that might mean also, depending on where you live, if you're in a metropolitan city area, light traffic might be different than somebody who lives in a rural area where there's only a car every so often. Let it be known, and from your perspective in your area, how many other vehicles are on the road. As far as with traffic, also, look at, are there pedestrians? Were there people in the crosswalk? Were there people on the sidewalks? Are there people around? Is this a school zone? Oftentimes, law enforcement agencies have a request from schools because people are driving too fast by the schools. They'll set up and they're stopping cars because of the school zone. Or another area where many complaints are coming in to law enforcement, they'll set up and watch for the traffic in order to slow people down in that area, especially, as I said, where there are many pedestrians. What about the signs or signals that are in the area? Is there a posted speed limit? If not, do you know what the speed limit is on that rural area? Do you know what the posted speed limit is, even if it's not there on the roadway? You have to take time to know what that speed limit is, even if there's no signs around. Also, how about, are there signal lights? Are they working? Are they in operating condition, working properly? Are there other posted warnings, such as pedestrian crossing signs, bicycle signs, dangerous curve, and slowing down, those kinds of things? Look at what are the signs that are on the roadway in that area where you were stopped. Notice also the time of day. Is it sunny? Is it daylight? Is it nighttime? Are there lights? Are there street lights? Or is it dark? What is the time of day and what is the lighting situation? That's something that you're going to want to make note of. Also, how about the visibility? Is it a foggy day? Was it clear? Was it rainy? Is there snow? What's the visibility? How far can you see? So those are all areas that a court is going to be interested in, and it shows you have done your due diligence. You've done your duty by going back and looking at these things. It shows that you're paying attention. It shows that you're a cautious driver. What's the position of the vehicles? Where was your car? Where were you when that officer decided he was going to stop you? Look at your speedometer and all those kinds of things. Those are areas where you want to be aware. Where was the officer? Did they pull out from another road? Maybe they were going another direction and they did a U-turn. It's not impossible that an officer has mistaken you for another vehicle. And that's why you want to notice, wait a minute, he couldn't possibly have seen me. He thought, and he was mistaken. He thought I was someone else. Notice the position of the vehicles. How then did he determine to stop you? What was the reason he pulled you over and not the guy next to you or somebody else going up ahead? Or maybe there was no one else on the road and you were the only one there. Why did he stop you? Those are things you want to be considering. And if you're not able to take pictures at that time, if you're uncomfortable taking pictures at the time, or you're too flustered, that's okay. Come back the next day. Come back later. Make note of those conditions. Think about these things. Maybe you haven't thought about them and now you're aware of those. Go back under similar situations and take note. What were the conditions? These are the things I want to notice. This is the condition of the roadway. This is the condition of the traffic and the pedestrian, and those sorts of things, as well as the road conditions, potholes, and things of that matter. Now, let's talk about parking tickets. Parking tickets are something else. What do you do when you want to fight a parking ticket? What do you consider? Well, if you could see, there's a white pickup truck that's pulled in where it was clearly marked by a red cone. They shouldn't have been parking there. Now, this is the old style of meter, if you notice here in this picture. And there are modern station parking meters today that are causing municipalities a lot of problems. There are still a lot of bugs. They're not this old style. Now there's a pay station and it's located every so often. If it's this old type that you got stuck and the parking meter just went, it's going to be difficult to fight that case because the parking meter must have shut off before that traffic officer came by and saw that. So the bugs aren't worked out on the modern systems yet. What do? Well, you want to explain that you attempted to pay. You're going to fight that ticket with a signed statement. You can do much of this online nowadays at most municipalities. Many of them are set up because there's just so much going on with the traffic courts, they just don't have time. So fight the ticket with a signed statement. Just explain what happened, that you did try to pay. It wasn't working, or it didn't accept your card, or whatever, or you thought it did accept your card. Have someone else, if there's someone else with you, let them do a signed statement as well. Now, this doesn't have to be an affidavit. However, it needs to say that I promise that this is the truth under penalty of law. So it's not an affidavit, but you're making a signed statement that, yes, this is a true and faithful statement. Don't allow traffic tickets, especially parking tickets, to accumulate. Do you know an officer will see that many tickets on your car, or they'll pull you over and they notice that you have many tickets? They can impound your car. Now what went from, I don't know, $60, $70 in parking tickets, or maybe it's more, now it's going to be hundreds of dollars in impound fees, as well as towing cost. And many tow truck drivers, they'll eventually put a lien on your vehicle, and it will just become theirs, and they'll either sell it or they'll scrap it. So don't allow tickets to accumulate. Pay your parking tickets. But what if you're not the driver? What if somebody borrowed your car and they got a parking ticket? What happens then? Is that something you can fight? You are responsible. That's why you want to think about, if I let somebody else drive my car and they get a ticket, yeah, I'm responsible. If I get a parking ticket. Now, if it's a moving violation, that may be something else. If it is a violation of something on the vehicle, then you're responsible for that. If the tail light's not working, brake lights aren't working, some other misfunction in the vehicle, you're responsible for that. If it's something that they were doing while they were driving, they are responsible. If they parked your car where they shouldn't have and you get a parking ticket, you're stuck. So think twice about loaning your vehicle and who you loan it to. Now, what about when you go to court? Moving violations or parking tickets? What's going to happen? Common mistakes that I've seen way too often is people admit guilt in their statements. Think through what you want to say. One man got up and said, well, I think the officer was so nice, he was going to let me go. He never said, wait a minute, I didn't stop for that red light. He just said, "Oh, well, he was a nice guy. I figured he would just let me off." Well, that's admitting guilt. Think about it. One of the common mistakes is saying everybody else was going faster than I was. You have just admitted you were going faster than the posted speed limit. It doesn't matter if everybody else. You got caught. You were the one pulled over. Why that is? Many, many different reasons. But you cannot make that an argument that everyone was exceeding the speed limit, because every one of us is expected to drive within the speed limits. Now, you could also come up and say, well, my car wouldn't stop. Think about it. You have just admitted your car is not in the kind of shape that it needs to be. The repairs haven't been made, or you were driving too fast. You were driving too fast and you couldn't make the stop. So you're admitting guilt by saying some of these things. What about when you're going into and you get a red light ticket? Well, the light was yellow when I entered the intersection, but when you're coming to the intersection and it's yellow, you are required to slow and stop. It doesn't mean speed up and get through. Interesting enough, many people say, well, the light was yellow when I entered the intersection, and you might get by with that. But if they ask the question, how long was it yellow? Did you have time to slow? So if the light was yellow when you entered the intersection, you might get by with it. But that guy behind you is not going to get by with it. They'll get that ticket as well. Be very, very cautious in that. There are many cities, municipalities now that have cameras for red lights. And I'm amazed when I get into a certain city that sometimes we visit, how many people run red lights. And that's something that the law enforcement is really targeting because it is so dangerous. It's causing so many accidents. So there are a lot of red light tickets that are given there. So just beware when you're entering an intersection and the yellow light is on. Consider this. Is it worth the time to fight this? Is it really worth your time if you're going to have to miss work? Can you do this online? Is this something that's going to cost you more than if you fight it? Think about, what is it going to cost? And many states have the point system. You already have some points. Maybe you need to fight this because the points against your driver's license are already kind of high. When money is tight, you can go to the court and you can ask for a community service project. Let me do something else. Your Honor, I don't have the money. I realize I've done this, but I need to maybe do this by community service. And that is something. You're taking responsibility and you're showing that you're going to take care of it. That's what they're looking for. You can hope that the officer doesn't show up to court. That's unlikely in this day and age because so many things are being done online. By the time you get a traffic court date, if you have fought it that far, you better believe that they're going to require that officer to show up. Even if he works midnights, he's going to have to come and show up. And by the way, officers get something like 3 to 4 or 5 hours of extra pay in order to show up to court if they're not on duty. So there is an incentive for them to show up. So don't count on that. But you can hope maybe that he won't show up. There's a case that maybe they won't, and you'll automatically win. Do your homework. Think this through. Is it worth it? Is it worth getting your car impounded or having to have a boot on your car? Something on these matters. You've got to get those areas taken care of. Be aware of your situation. Be aware of your surroundings. Think about others. When we're looking at driving, we're not all to ourselves. It's not our own little world. And sometimes in our car, it feels like this is my little confine. This is me. However, others have use of the roadway the same as you. Think about when this happens, how am I going to be a better person? And maybe this difficulty has come in order for the Lord to make me look at myself, evaluate who I am and what I'm doing, and I'm really going to have to look at what my thought process is. And after all, that's what the whole purpose of this Hardtime.info is, to help us get our thoughts right and help us bring them in line. And of course, my consideration is that we bring them in line with the Lord and with God's Word. Thank you. Hope this has been helpful. If you want to contact us, contact me at frank@hardtime.info. If this has been helpful to you, please hit subscribe or follow or like. Share this with others. That will make a huge difference.